What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Swingman podcast. It's podcast number 143, I do believe. And it's that time of the year, the playoffs are starting. We've got the play-in to kind of like tease us into it, get us a little bit excited. And then we've got the NBA playoffs like next Saturday that it's coming now. So every year we sit down, and I'll tell you what, I've said this before. This is one of my favorite pods to do every single year. We sit down, we break down the bracket, we go through it, we say who we think's going to go through, how many games we think they're going to do it in, and give you our reasons why. And ultimately, we always come out of a flawless bracket, right? I mean, that's how we normally do these things. Before we get into it, though, as ever, I've got to ask Louis and Lewis, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad. As you say, this is the build-up to the most exciting time in the NBA calendar. So it's where you see a load of the bracket build-ups. Obviously, at some point, we'll be doing our MVPs and all the awards. So that there's always discourse going around. There's always opinions thrown out, and a lot of people get a lot of stuff wrong, like us usually. So we'll be excited to see what we get right and wrong this time.
Yeah, been a busy couple of weeks for me personally. I feel like I've been slacking a little bit in the NBA games department, but of course I'm here to give very informed opinions that will never be wrong. Just like our over-unders.
Yeah, I mean,
like
to be fair, our over-under. So obviously, as I'm sure you are aware, and if you're not, if you're listening to for us to the first time, if I could get some words out there, that would be helpful. Every year at the start of the NBA season, we go through all 30 NBA teams. We look at what their over-under win total is set at, and we did a pretty good job, I'd say. We only missed one. The 8 that we said that were our bankers, we got 7 right. And if I'm honest, we would have got all 8 right, but the Bucks decided to go and hire Doc Rivers. And I mean, you can't account for variables like that, is all I'll say. You can't account for variables like that. But in any case, this is a podcast to go through the playoff brackets. So that's what we shall do. Let's move the screen over. Let's get it set in place here. So this is our NBA bracket. Now, obviously, we're going to have the playing game. So when we talk about the Thunder and the 1 seed, there are multiple teams that we can choose from. So I think we start here. I think it makes sense. Does it make sense to start here? I think from a sense of that, because then we can eliminate teams from it. So the 1 seed's the Thunder, but I think where we need to talk about this here, who do we think is getting the 8th seed? You know what, Louis? I'm going to go straight to you. Who do you think is getting the 8th seed?
My guess would be, so out of the 9-10 matchup, so Kings Warriors, I'm going to go the Warriors there personally. Mainly, this is how it goes, isn't it? 9 plays 10.
Yeah,
9 plays 10.
9-10. Winner of 9-10 plays loser of 7-8.
Yeah. So the winner of the Pelicans versus the winner of the Pelicans Lakers in that sense.
I think before this year, I always thought it was 7 versus 10, but I always think, they're playing each other. But yeah, no, I think the Warriors will probably beat the Kings. The Kings have got some injury woes. No Malik Monk, no Kevin Huerter. Obviously, this is like a 1-game scenario, so it's kind of hard to predict this really because like anything can happen. The Miami Heat, who got to the finals last year, kind of almost went out against the Chicago Bulls. But I'm gonna pick the Warriors because I think they've been a little bit better towards the end of the season. They've obviously got the number, I think, of the Kings really, and I just don't think the Kings are very good, and they haven't ended the season very well. So that'd be my pick for the 9-10. 7-8, I think the Lakers are going to beat the Pelicans personally. They beat them in the in-season tournament in that semi-final, which was a pretty crushing defeat for the Pelicans at the time. They kind of got a bit of steam. I talked about them last podcast as a stock rise, and I thought they were doing really well, and then they just kind of tail off again. I think with them, it's just difficult. They don't have the side basically to deal with Anthony Davis, who I know had some injury issues as well coming out of the last game, so that's probably a bit of a cause for concern. But I do just think LeBron will be able to get to the bucket whenever he wants. I don't think Valanciunas really has that defensive noose to stop either LeBron or AD. And I think they're just kind of, it seems like with LeBron teams every single season, they do just get better after the trade deadline because they're like, okay, we're safe. We're not getting traded now. And there's less sort of like discourse around it. And yeah, I think they've been decent. So I think I'll go for the Lakers 7, and then that would be the Pelicans and the Warriors facing each other, right? And 1-game scenario. So I'm just going to go to Pelicans because I do just think overall I've slammed the Warriors so much this season. I do think the Pelicans can pull it off in a 1-game scenario. I'm not sure how they deal with maybe Zion in a 1-game situation where he just needs to score. Obviously, it goes the other way around. I'm not sure how they may be able to deal with Steph if he catches fire. I just feel like the Warriors team is tired. There's just something about them that I'm not a big fan of, but I know they can put it in a 1-game scenario.
Not filling you with confidence.
Yeah, I think the thing with the Warriors is they've been so. I think it is Louis frozen.
Yeah, Louis,
No,
he's back
back.
now. It was a
Okay.
great little area for him to freeze on, is what we will say.
Yeah.
But Louis gave his your message came through, Louis, and then you like kind of froze on some very happy face. So we move for it, we live for it. But go on, Lewis, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Warriors have been so strange this season. I feel like 1 month, I think all hope is gone for them, and it's a wrap. And then the next month they go on a run. Then after that, it falls flat again. And then towards the end of the season, they picked it up again. So they're a hard one to call sometimes. I think we're all pretty much going to be agreed that the Lakers are going to end up with the 7th seed because they, especially last game, absolutely crushed the Pelicans. So
Yeah.
I don't, barring, as Louis said, maybe something longer term with Anthony Davis than we expect, and he potentially misses the game. I don't think that'll be the case. And even if he doesn't, the Lakers could still pull through. So I'd say Lakers for the 7. I think I agree the Warriors over the Kings. I think it's a mental edge and just the form they're carrying through. I think the Kings have been slipping a little bit. They've had a couple of injuries. So I favour the Warriors there. And then the Pelicans and the Warriors is an interesting one. I think the two things that really stand out is, the Zion problem. How do the Warriors deal with that? Maybe Kuminga could help a little bit on that side, as well as obviously, your Draymonds and the usual stoppers they have for some of the people getting to the rim of the Warriors. But on the other side, you've got Steph, and you look at who the Pelicans have to stop Steph, and in reality, you can't really stop Steph. If he's on a heater, he's on a heater. So I think both of them will have big games in that game. I actually, even though Louis said I've slandered them quite a lot, I think I actually tend to favour the Warriors and their experience there. And Steph, I think he's probably going to win Clutch Player of the Year this year. I trust him to maybe bring them home in that one.
So just before we go into this as well, you think? I mean, obviously this was going round. I saw Mike Greenberg was talking about it today. Do you think there's any way the Lakers try and be cute and avoid taking on the Pels and maybe ducking Denver to play OKC? Do you think there's any merit in that as a conversation or not?
I don't think they're a good enough. Even I think they're a very solid team. I don't think they're a good enough team where they would confidently sack off a game to then play the Warriors and Kings and beat them so that they avoid Denver and go for OKC. I think you just play what's in front of you there.
Yeah.
I think they beat the Pels and then they have an extremely unfortunate matchup first round, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll go into we'll speak about that when we get to it. I mean, I also agree in terms of if we're going off the 8th seed here, I would have the Lakers to beat the Pelicans, and then I think if the Kings were fully healthy, I genuinely would pick the Kings. And the Kings, the issue with them as well is the last sort of 10 games of the regular season, it's not been good vibes down in Sacramento. It really hasn't. So I think in terms of all of that, I think it'll be a good game. But I do, in this scenario, in a 1-game win or go home, I am going to have the best player on the court is Steph Curry. So I'm going to be going for the Kings. I think the issue faces realistically, if Sabonis has himself a game, it's going to be quite hard to slow him down. That's only going to be that's how I see this game changing. But yeah, I think for me, it's going to be the Warriors that go through. And then in the same matchup against the Warriors and the Pelicans, I think, yes, there's no one in that sort of small ball sense, but my money would be on the Warriors is what we'll say. So, but I've done this before. You can't click back when you click on a team. If we have it as the Warriors getting the 8th seed, do we have them standing any hope of taking the Thunder down? Or are we just going to go Thunder in, say, 6 and move on?
I actually think if you are the Warriors, I think they'd probably fancy their chances against a young team like the Thunder. But for me, when I look at the Thunder, they are defensively stout with their wings, with Chet. And even though, Chet, obviously, people worry about his size and maybe him getting bullied a little bit, the Warriors aren't that type of team. And then you look at Lou Dort and Shea, and I think even though they are the second youngest team in the NBA, they just are very well-rounded. And I think even though the Warriors have all the experience, I would favour the Thunder in this matchup.
So I'd have OKC in 6. You would also favour OKC. Louis, where are you leaning?
Yeah, it will be OKC. I think they'll probably look at the Warriors as one of the more favourable matchups. I think if they got the Lakers, they'd be shaking because there is their experience factor and there's also the size, which I think will be a bit of a crutch for them going further into the playoffs, but I don't think that's as much of a concern with the Warriors as we've kind of alluded to. They don't have that big man that can kind of make you pay. Got some athleticism and size now of Kuminga, but not anywhere near anyone good enough in the big man spot. So yeah, I'd go Thunder. I'll think about 5 if they're playing the Warriors.
Where are you going, Lewis? 5 or 6? You're the tiebreaker here.
I was favouring 5 as well, actually. So
Okay.
that maybe giving Warriors a bit of disrespect there, given who they are. But I'll just say 5.
Thunder in 5. Moving on. Clips v Mavericks. Now, this is one that we rarely get to see. I'm just kidding. It's all the time. Luka Doncic only plays the Clippers in the playoffs. I would say that the Mavs this year have probably been at their best they've ever been going into a playoff run. I think you two will both agree with that one.
Well, in the Luka Doncic era, yeah.
In the Luka Doncic, yeah, correct. In the Luka Doncic era, this is probably the best team that they've had and the best run going into a playoff series. And the Clippers haven't been bad, but I would also say that their stock isn't as high as it has potentially been in other years. So where do you two have this going? And Louis, I went to you first. Lewis, I'll hand it over to you for the first one. Tell me who you think is going to go through, why, and in how many games.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because when I think about the Mavs and their brand of basketball, it's very much, ISO ball or Luka ball, and everything is built around him and him basically just taking the 1v1s, and then everything builds from that. And you have someone in Kyrie that when Luka's out, he basically fills that same role. It's slightly different players, obviously, but they favour those 1v1 ISO ball matchups. And funnily enough, Luka's brand of play, you could even say it's Harden-esque in his prime. So, obviously Harden's on the Clippers. But with that, I look at someone like healthy, obviously, a Kawhi or a PG, and I think, they are the type of players that maybe could give Luka some problems with that kind of play. Then you see what he did against them previously, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, he's only like one of the highest, if not the highest scoring player in playoff history in the games he's played. When it comes to form, I think the Mavs have pretty much been the informed team in the NBA lately, especially in the West. And for me, with the head of steam they've got, with Luka and the form he's in, I give the edge to the Mavs. And I'll say in 6.
Okay, Louis, how do you feel?
I would go the Mavs as well. I think it's a different team to what we're used to with this Dallas team, and Luka seems a bit more happy to spread the ball a little bit. Obviously, I think having Kyrie there helps because he kind of just demands that type of usage, really. But I also think they're really good defensively, and I think Gafford, who they got at the trade deadline, has been really good. PJ Washington as well, I think, has been decent for them, and they're a good defensive team. And the Clippers look kind of uninterested. Harden's coming in with an injury, I believe. Kawhi's coming in with an injury, I believe. What a shock. Kawhi can turn it on in the playoffs, and we can see that he can just get that drop 40. Luka will. There's absolutely no one on the Clippers side that can really even try and stop Luka. I'll be interested to see what they try and employ to at least try and slow him down. That'll be interesting, but I'm not sure what tools they have at their disposal, particularly to stop that. You could say the same vice versa about Kawhi, Paul George, whatever. I just don't think those guys are surprisingly enough ready for the playoffs yet again. And yeah, that's just my opinion going into it. I think I'm going to have the Mavs in 6 as well. Personally,
6 as well. I mean, this has been the story for the Clippers every year, it seems, is that they just go into it and they don't seem to be ready. I would have thought this year would have been it because they have been they've played a lot of regular season to get games together. I do think this series will be closer than we think. I think that Luka will always get his, and you can't really stop Luka getting his. And I think you can't really stop Kyrie from getting to a certain point. It's going to be the role players on the Mavs, and this was what happens sort of every year, is if they can kind of show up and perform for them. And I think on that sense, the Clippers are a little bit deeper. I kind of trust some of you got Russ to come off the bench for them, and Russ has been doing well for them of late as well. I think that ultimately, I do think Dallas are going to probably go through because they're going to have the best player on the court, in my opinion. And this is how, whenever I think of a game's going to be close, I'll always lean on that end. So do you know what? I'll agree. I think it'll be the Mavs in 6 is where we'll go for that one. Anyway, other Western Conference series, and we saw this on the final day of the regular season, Timberwolves v Suns. I'll kick this one off. The Timberwolves have been really, really good this year, and I can hold my hands up, and I've been really impressed with Rudy Gobert as well. I just think in a 7-game series here, there's too much talent on this Suns team. Is all it is. I think that KD can afford to have a bad night because Devin Booker's there to pick it up. Devin Booker can afford to have a bad night because Bradley Beal can have a great offensive night. They've got players around them now, like Grayson Allen just signed a new deal today, I think, as well. There's players in and around this Suns team that seem to be a little bit meshing together. I do like Nurkic to sort of cancel out Rudy almost in that sense as well. And again, best player on the court is Kevin Durant. So at this time, I would go Suns. And I think I'd go Suns in 6 as well.
Well, the interesting thing with this is when I think of the defense, because obviously when we think of Minnesota, the first thing we think of is the defense they've had this year. It's a matchup where I'm looking less at, obviously Rudy's had the biggest impact on that Minnesota team defensively, but with the personnel the Suns have got, I'm really looking at the other Timberwolves players and how they're going to play against KD, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker's game. I think that's going to be super important, how those players match up and can potentially slow them down. And if they manage to step up and do that, then I think the Timberwolves could really have a shot. But I just favour Devin Booker and Kevin Durant to be able to score enough, and Bradley Beal as well, to push them over the line. And I know we just saw the Suns win last game, but it's last game this season. Like, you can't take a ton out of it. But it was a bit of an insight into what could potentially happen. So for me, I think this is the hardest one for me in the West to predict. I do think it's going to be really close. And when I'm picturing what's going to happen in my head, I think it's more difficult to see how it's going to play out. But if I had to choose, I would go with the Suns.
Yeah, dagger in the heart for me here as well. I think I probably will pick Phoenix. We probably have to start disagreeing at some stage.
Yeah.
It's not a very good matchup for the Timberwolves. I think they've lost the majority of the games to the Suns this season. Ant's been really bad in every single one of the games. He was terrible last night as well. I think 13 points he ended on. And, you know, they were chatting some rubbish to him, and usually you think that livens him up, that gets him going. And he just couldn't figure it out, which is strange because the Phoenix defense is not good. And I don't think they're a very good team. And I mean, when we get to the next round, I think they'll probably go out. But I think that, you know, I'll give them a bit of credit over these last couple of games, 10 or so. I think people were looking like, oh, could they get into the, you know, could they be in the playing conversation? Could they be in the playoffs? Because they had a really tough end to the season. And I think they went 7-3 in their last 10 games. 7-3 in their last 10 games. And they have figured out something, I believe. I think Bradley Beal has been a little bit better. And yeah, I think the Timberwolves having to figure out Cat being put back in as well is another factor you kind of have to get into it, let alone they've been kind of clunky in the offense in fourth quarters throughout the entirety of the season. They've been kind of wheeling or leaning their really good defense. And I mean, in playoff series, I think it comes down to who can score, who can get those buckets in late game scenarios when the pressure's on. And I just have a bit more faith in guys like KD and the actual best player on the court, which is Devin Booker.
Right.
So that would be. I'd pick the Suns, but I'd pick them in 7.
In 7, okay, right. Big slog of a series then. We'll go for 7 there, and what we'll do this to round out the West. Nugs v what we say is going to be the Lakers from earlier on. I'm going to go to you two because I feel like I know what you're going to say. But let's hear it in terms of the case for Denver here.
No, I mean, I don't think Denver have been very good over the last stretch of the season, particularly. You could say, again, maybe lack of interest, maybe they're saving themselves for the playoffs. But I do think there have been games where I've been like, you're not executing like I expect. And that's not like a fatigue thing. I just don't think they've really been firing on all cylinders. I'm not sure if you saw the game, particularly against the Spurs, where Wemby really had his way. And I know Wemby is he's a seminal player, and that's something different they probably haven't had to deal with before. But there's just been a couple games where they've been faltering, really. And I don't think they'd want to see the Lakers at this early on. I don't think that's a matchup that they want to see. I know they swept them in the Western Conference Finals last year, but all those games were close. And I think they've got the size to kind of match up a little bit, do some things. I still think the Nuggets are going to win, obviously, but I think it's going to be closer. I think I'm going to go for a six game series here personally.
Yeah, I mean, with the Nuggets, I would say Jamal Murray's was injured for quite a while, so that's taken away basically their most potent weapons, that 2-man game, especially closing out games. Obviously, he was there for the Spurs game, and that was a bad loss. I think watching it back, I just think Jokic for quite a lot of the game was just a bit too passive. I know people complain about him being that a lot of the time, and in actual fact, it's just playing how the Nuggets play as their scheme, is their brand of winning basketball. But that game especially, I think, especially with the lead they had, they just kind of watched it fall. Obviously, they didn't. They were playing to win the game, but it was almost like they watched it fall away. But for me, with the Nuggets and why I favour them over the Lakers is just when it comes to those tight finishes, no matter what, Denver, I know Steph, as I say, I think Steph's going to win Clutch Player of the League. I actually think the most Clutch Player of the League is Jokic, mainly because of that 2-man game. It's just every single time you watch it, or at least 90% of the time, it just doesn't fail them, and it always gets them a good look. And in tight games, especially against this Lakers team, I think that is something they struggle with a lot of the time. I just see the Nuggets prevailing. As you say, the sweep last season, even though it was a sweep, the games were close, but I just have full confidence in the Denver team to bring it home in the majority of the games, and that's enough to win a series against them. So I will say 4-2 as well. I do think the Lakers are going to get a couple of games off them this time, but I can't see the Nuggets not going through.
Yeah, I mean, look, before I go out here, I do think Denver will go through. But if I'm picking who I'd like to go through, I'd like the Lakers to go through. A Lakers Suns semis to me will be sensational to watch. I think it would arguably the series of the entire playoffs. I'd love this to go to 7 and then to see like an AD or LeBron game personally. However, the ultimate factor for me is not that 1-2 punch. It is the coach. And I think there is chalk and cheese of a difference here. So in that sense, I do agree. I do think that I know they got swept last year. I think the Lakers are in a better scenario than they were last year, is what I would also say. This team seems to be better than it was then, I would say, in terms of how they play.
I'm not sure about that. You know,
they came in hot. They came in hot.
They did come in. They did come in hot. But they're coming in pretty hot this year, is what I'll say as well. And I think they're not getting sort of the attention that they should be getting. I think they're playing quite well, and they're going under the radar in that sense. But I do think I agree. I think it's going to be the Nugs in 6, but I would love it to be the Lakers in 7. That's
I will say, to be fair, I do think they are getting quite a lot of attention, because I would wager that if the Lakers did end up matching against the Timberwolves or a Thunder, I think more people than not would pick them to go through.
Yeah, I think so.
Part of that might be Lakers fan bias.
I would pick them to go through over the Thunder.
But
that is my opinion. But yeah.
I would as well, to be honest.
So do you think? So hang on. So going back to that, do you think there's no merit that no one in that Los Angeles Lakers organization is having the question of going?
I think the problem is, I think it's a fair question, but the problem is one. As I said, I don't think even though I think they were actually one of the better Western Conference teams going into these playoffs, I don't think they'd have enough confidence to sack a game off to then have to win that one and done.
There's too much of an there's too much of a sort of liability that you could go and mess that up.
It's one game.
What it says to the other teams as well about your mentality, and also there is the argument that if you are the Lakers, the Lakers organization, you are about championships. If you're going to have to go through Denver, you want them in the first round when you've got a fresh LeBron and a fresh AD to go against them. Not that I think AD's doing anything against Jokic again. Defensively, offensively, AD can have some big games, and I think him and LeBron will, and that's why they'll manage to get a couple. But ultimately, I just can't see past Denver.
Indeed. Right. Eastern Conference time. Let's not really waste too much time on this one here. I will say, who have you two got going out of the Bulls and the Hawks? The sort of the ultimate battle of the middle.
That's the most interesting part of this. Who
have you got? Who would you two have going over that? Bulls or Hawks? Don't need to spend too much time on it. Just who would you think?
Gut feeling the Bulls, personally.
Yeah, my gut feeling the Bulls. Yeah, I was talking about clutch player this year. I think DeRozan's got a shout for it as well. He's really managed to have some big games.
Okay, so you two have both got the Bulls. Who have you got them losing to then? So how have we got this going from Miami and Philly?
Oh well, yeah, that's true.
That is interesting, to be fair. But I think the Sixers will beat the Heat, and then the Heat will beat the Bulls. So we'll get Celtics Heat again.
This is gonna be. I think the Heat beat the Sixers. I don't know why. I just have a feeling one of these is always goes the way that you don't expect it, and then we're gonna get all these playing games wrong. But yeah,
and the only one we've not got right is me saying that the Lakers in 7. I think is where we're going. But anyway, so we've got Celtics here then playing the Bulls is what we're saying, right?
No, it's playing.
It's playing the Heat. Sorry,
probably playing the Heat.
Well, it's not. Well, actually, I'll say that it's up to you. It's up to you because Louis thinks the Heat are going to win. So
no, I don't think the Heat are going to win. So I think it's Celtics Heat, and then I think it's Celtics in 5 is what I'll say.
Yeah,
potentially Celtics in 4 is where I'd also lean.
Yeah, I think you got to give.
I'll say 5.
Yeah. I think you got to give whoever it is the game of respect. Probably the Heat.
Jimmy or Joel gets 1 is what we're saying here.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah.
Are we undervaluing the Heat again? though? Are we going to be
maybe
up mugs again?
The only thing with it is Boston have been so good, but there is that thing about Boston in the playoffs where it kind of counts, and then they don't turn up to what you expect them to do. But this team looks so goddamn good. I can't see anywhere else like it. Just it doesn't when they're on it. There doesn't seem to be a chink in the armor. They seem to have pretty much everything. So, yeah, we'll go Celtics in 5 and we'll swiftly move on. Cavs Magic, where are we going?
I really struggled with this, actually.
Yeah.
I actually really struggled with this. But I want to hear what you two say first for us.
I want to say this is going to be the ugliest series of basketball These two, I mean, maybe the Cavs when Donovan Mitchell gets going, but offense is going to be a bit of a rock fight. I think personally, the Magic are not good offensively, but they're quite good defensively, and I think they can clamp up when they want to. Yeah, exactly. So I don't have a strong opinion on it. I think the Cavs probably pull through just due to experience. It's very unlikely that you see a team where the Magic literally, I don't know who they have in their team that has actually played in the playoff series before. Maybe like Mo Wagner, but he's probably not playing minutes. So I think I lean like I did with the Suns and the Timberwolves towards the slightly more offensive fluid team. That being said, the Cavs are not very offensively fluid at all.
Yeah,
I mean, Mitchell's been in and out. He's not been very good. After that sort of, I think it was like 20 game run, they went like 17-3. They've just taken a complete nosedive, and it's very clear to me that this team just doesn't work overall. But I think they'd be very disappointed if they were to go out to a Magic team who's experienced in the playoffs for the first time and who are not very good offensively. So that's where I lean on that direction. But I'd love to see Paolo in the playoff series, how he does, how he reacts to it. Franz, who I really appreciate as well, has not been very good this season, I don't think. Well, not been very good for post All-Star break anyway, I should say. So it'll be interesting to see how they react. I think the Magic will take this as it comes, It's a learning experience for them mainly when they go on. And I think this might be a Cleveland Swan song, personally. I'm not sure about you two. But I'm going the Cavs in 6. Let's go 6.
It's tough because when I look at the Magic, the two things that really stand out is one, as you say, their defense has been so good this year. And 2 is when I look at the size on their team, where you got Banchero and Wagner both at 6'10", and essentially wings. I know Banchero's been listed power forward a lot of the time, but he plays up wing.
Mm-hmm.
That usually gives them a big advantage over teams. But then I see the Cavs team and the size they've got. It's like, well, is it that much for benefit in this series? I look at Donovan Mitchell on the Cavs, and I think he's had big playoff performances. Will he carry through? But then once again, you go back to the Magic, and Jalen Suggs has had an unbelievable campaign. And maybe he can do something on that account. But as you say, I don't have strong feelings about this. I tend to favour the Cavs with the experience, and just I've seen Donovan Mitchell have big games in the playoffs. I think he can get a couple of them in this series. So I'll go with the Cavs in 6.
Yeah, I think this is the closest series that's on the sort of slate here, is what I'll say. I know I said earlier that I think Clippers Mavs is going to be close, but I think in terms of a slog fest, this is going to be up there for it. I'm actually leaning more Magic than Cavs, only because I think in the sense of that, I know like it comes down to what we say we need what teams can score, but I don't think either of these teams necessarily scores particularly well. So if I lean on the defensive end, I think Orlando are like a top defensive team. I think they'll find ways to frustrate Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and look to give it to some of their sort of lesser known players that are going to be in and around here. Like they're going to give Isaac Okoro so many shots. I do think if I'm going, I think it's going to be like a Magic in 7. And the issue is this is going to be such a deep and hard fought series that it's going to be a very easy matchup for whoever the Celtics get. I feel because I feel the Celtics are going to breeze through, and these are going to take 10 bells out of each other. So I'd go Magic in 7. What did you two say? You both said Cavs, right?
Yeah, I'd say Cavs in 6. The only last thing I'd say is maybe when you think about the mental game, especially with the slog of the series that we think this is going to be. That Cavs team is probably looking at each other thinking this is the last iteration of this.
Yeah, like Donovan Mitchell. Everyone knows everyone knows Donovan Mitchell's out.
Yeah, and then you look at the Magic side of things, and it's the complete opposite. Everyone's probably buzzing. It's their first playoff series. They're a team on the up. So maybe that plays a factor, but I'd still go Cavs.
The thing is with the discourse about Donovan Mitchell, and don't get me wrong, he was terrible in the playoffs last year, but for the Jazz, he would. Like he got like 60 points in the play. He's like, I'm not the biggest fan of the player, but he can score when he wants to. And I mean, it'll be
him and Booker, wasn't it? It was him and Booker that just kept putting like 50, 60, 50.
No, it was him and Jamal Murray. It was
that was it. That was Jamal Murray.
Yes,
great series. That was literally like every night. Every night, I was like, "Are you dropped 50? My turn tonight. That's gonna happen."
The bubble was great.
We'll go Cavs in 6, and then we'll move on to the other 2 games in the East. Bucks Pacers. Obviously, a well-known rivalry this year within the NBA of who's going to take the game-winning ball home. On this one, if I'm honest, even if he's healthy, I'm going Indiana. If I'm being, even if he's healthy, I'm going Indiana in 6.
If you wanted to pick a major upset, if you want to pick a major upset, this is the one to go for.
Would it be a major upset? They've been terrible.
Yeah, it would be a major. Given the personnel. It'd be a major upset. If I turned around to you and said Giannis is getting bounced in the first round by a team whose best player is Tyrese Halliburton, you would be shocked.
Yeah,
I know that takes context out of it, but it would definitely be an upset. And
Dame's been terrible. We're talking about Dame's been awful of late.
Yeah, I'm just saying. No. I would guess if you put this to a vote, the majority of people would still have the Bucks going through, regardless of what the regular seasons look like between the two. And I'm going to pick the Bucks purely because I'm just putting it all on Giannis and saying, look, I think you're top 3 minimum, top 2 in my book player in the NBA. You can carry this series through.
I think this was going to be my hot take, but George is. I think the Pacers win in 7. I've got a real strong feeling, and it is an upset. You can't deny it's an upset because, like he said, if you turn around and said Giannis and Dame lost to Pascal Siakam and Tyrese.
You know what? I said Halliburton. Siakam's a shout for being best.
Yeah, when you go down that route, yes, fair enough. I'm seeing it from sort of like how I've seen these games play. If someone said to me the Pacers to win, I'm not going to be like, damn, what an upset. That's mental.
They've been like 3 times this year.
Yeah, that's the thing. They kind of own
the thing is, I wouldn't be shocked, but at the same time, I can tell you now, if it happens, the minute after the last game ends, Giannis is getting the biggest slating from.
I don't think Giannis does.
Ever see.
If they lose
he's
this
not
series,
doing another press conference.
No, well, he's not doing another press conference. And if they lose this series, it's not going to be because of Giannis.
Doc Rivers will probably get the most. Don't get me wrong.
It's Doc Rivers. It's Doc Rivers getting his P45, and then it's Dame Lillard because he's been terrible of late, and it's his first playoff series. And if he gets done in his first playoff series in the first round as a Buck, there might not be a world where he is a Buck at the start of the next season. Is all we'll say.
No, well, it depends if someone will take him. I think the way I see it, I think it's a pure blood rush. I'm going for the Pacers. The Bucks can't defend guards. Halliburton has probably not been really good, I'd say, since January, if I'm quite honest, and that's being quite generous. So there is that aspect to it. I think the momentum is just not with the Bucks whatsoever. The coaching, the injuries, the health is just all such a mess.
I just want to say now, if the rest of the playoff bracket goes how I think it's going to go, we are going to have a mental prediction going deep, and it is going to get slated by.
Yeah, because you know what, we're turning up.
It's
to this
going to be horrendous. I know it's coming as well.
Yeah, you know it's coming. Nick's second seed against the potential Philly or Heat seed, and we said that we believe. I think overall, the majority, if I'm correct in saying, believe here that the Philadelphia 76ers are going to best the Miami Heat in the playing game. So they draw the New York Knicks in a potential 7-game series. And I would like to put on the record here that if Philly get a matchup with New York, Joel Embiid is having a party in MSG is all I'll say right there. Philly go through for me in 5 is where I would land on that one.
I cannot believe that I am about to see us predict and hang our on Joel Embiid going all the way to a conference finals.
Oh yeah, you know it's coming.
It's coming. I know it's coming. The funny thing is, for me, I'll be honest with you. I'm looking at the man above me. I'm looking at the Philly fan. And I know what my opinion is. I know it's happening regardless. So the thing with it, if I had the Bucks going, I just wanted it to be known I had the Bucks going through, and I thought they'd beat the Sixers in the next round. But I do think you're selling the Knicks a bit short there. I do think they are a very good team.
They are. They are absolutely. They've been amazing this year.
Jalen Brunson has elevated himself into MVP conversation come the end of the season. I obviously don't think he's going to win it. I don't think it'll be top 3, but I think he could sneak into the top 5. And I think it will depend on how people feel about Giannis basically in the Bucks season. I think it will be Jokic, Luka, SGA, whatever order you want. I'm not getting into MVP conversations now. Tatum and then Brunson or Giannis probably. But looking at how they've played, the fact they've managed to get the second seed, they play such a tough brand of basketball. And the other thing is, you talk about Luka being Harden-esque. Brunson's not far from that with the Knicks as well. But having said that, just the form Embiid's been in, how Nick Nurse sets that team up, and Embiid especially for success, I just fully healthy, which I know is the giant question mark when it comes to this. I can't see it. I just think it'll be too much, and the Knicks won't be able to handle Embiid. And I'll say the 76ers in 6. I don't think the Knicks only get 1.
I think it's unfortunate, obviously, that Julius Randle is not healthy for this, because I think this would be really interesting. I do really think it would be. I think it'll be interesting regardless. We had the pleasure of seeing Jalen Brunson in person a couple of months ago, and you kind of see. I mean, he's not like what you expect as like a top 10 player or anything like that. I'm not even sure where I'd rank him, but the speed at which he does things, how like everything is just built off him is really impressive. We didn't even get to see Anunoby. He's always a health concern as well. But to me, so is Embiid. Embiid is a health concern personally. I don't think he looks right since coming back. And so when we're getting through this, I struggle to see the corpse of Joel Embiid playing in the Eastern Conference Finals, but it looks like that's where it's going to go. I'll go for the Sixers in this personally, because I think they probably just have too much offense for the Knicks. And I think if you stop Brunson, you can probably stop the Knicks really, and that's what they'll have to try and do.
Indeed. Right. So where are we going? Philly and what?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'd say 6 as well.
Philly and 6. We'll go for that there. Right. We'll work our way back up here. We'll stay on it. Indiana, Philly. This is where, if Embiid does get an injury, this is where it occurs, because he always has one and then he gets injured. So if he gets injured, it's in this series. Otherwise, hell, he could be getting a ring on his finger if we're going to go down this route. But
no, that's definitely not.
But anyway, look, I think even if I'm being as serious as possible here, I truly can't see Joel Embiid staying healthy for an. If we're saying that's going 6
well,
games,
Can I?
he's not
can
playing
I,
another
but
6.
before you come to your decision, can I quickly butt in now just to make it a
Yeah.
little bit harder for you? I'm going to
Yeah.
pick the Sixers, so there you go.
Well, even if they don't,
decision.
well, so you're saying if Joel Embiid played
We
one,
can't
game, he's
predict
out.
that, can we? Though you know what I
We
mean.
can't.
It's a
I know we
complete
can't.
theoretical.
Oh, yeah, I
Well,
can't go
it's
off
not that
injuries.
theoretical though. Embiid gets
It's
injured
not.
every
I agree,
postseason.
but
Yeah, but just to make that decision harder for you, I know I'm saying the Sixers in this series. So
I know he's probably going to get injured. But like, I can't make predictions based on I
How
think he
have
might
we-
get injured.
This is a miss.
I think we should have probably put
Fit-
the Bucks through over the Pacers.
no,
if I'm
too
honest.
late now.
No, but the
You've
Pacers
done
are
it.
beating the Bucks. The Pacers are beating the Bucks. So the issue with this is, I mean, Philly are a misseeded team. Philly aren't the 7th seed in the East.
100%,
Let's
yeah.
be clear. Like when Embiid's healthy, they are arguably a top 4 team in the NBA. Right, is where I would say in the regular season this year. Right. When Embiid's healthy, I'd say they're a top 4 team. I'd just flat out put that there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I know it looks bad on paper from us going from if it's showing a playing team and we've got them in the conference finals, it does look a bit mad. But I do think there is some argument.
happened last
They
year.
always look like a top 4 team, though.
It did
Yeah,
happen
they always
last
look
year.
like a top 4 team, and they always get bloody bounced. Like,
Do you know what's going to be unreal? If we show this and it's actually Miami and we look like we're geniuses and we've predicted Miami.
I
Yeah.
also probably would predict this. If it was Miami, I'd probably predict this exact same thing. So you know what?
Yeah.
Do you know
It
what?
actually
You're
works
not
for me.
even wrong. Because if Miami do that, I'd have Miami to beat the Knicks and then I'd have Miami to beat the Pacers.
And then lose to the Celtics inevitably in the Eastern Conference Final.
So,
You know.
all right, so 7th seed win. Are we going Philly into
I'm
what?
saying they're going to do them in 5, to be honest.
I
There's
think
no
so.
way the Pacers stop that 76ers team. No chance.
Little gentleman sweep, not full sweep. We go gentleman sweep.
No, gentleman's sweet. Yeah.
They have
Gentleman's
absolutely no answer for
Yeah,
it.
so
The thing is, it's so
Tobias
strange.
Harris
Yeah.
is tipping his cap to when he's an Indiana Pacer next year. Right.
It's just strange. We don't know what we're going to get out of the 2 best players from the Eastern Conference, so it's
Okay,
just
yeah,
kind of hard.
Yeah,
True.
that's true.
Yeah.
I am saying that we
Oh,
are.
let's just get
We're,
this out of the way.
we're at 42.
Yeah,
minutes
let's just
now.
get this one out of the
Yeah,
way. please.
I'm saying Celtics in 4. I'm not going back. We've got 42
No, I
minutes.
agree.
I don't even
Yeah,
think
I think
Donovan
they'll
Mitchell
sweep
gets
them.
them 1. I think they'll sweep them because they'll know that could go. Anyway, we'll go back up here. We'll do Thunder Mavs. I think this is a little bit harder.
It's tough because I said before about the way Luka and the Mavs play their brand of basketball. And I was thinking about the Clippers, who potentially can match up to Luka, try and slow that down a little bit because it is a lot of ISOs, it's a lot of finding matchup, switching. Well, with the Thunder, there is a long list of people who I think can potentially, obviously you can't stop him, no one can stop Luka, can try and slow him down. And you look at SGA, Ludl, J-Dub, like they've got the personnel to try and do it. But for me, it might be selling the Thunder short, but I just think the Mavs are the form team at the moment, and Luka just looks like one of the best players. I mean, he is one of the best players in the NBA at the moment. So, and with Kyrie, they don't really skip a beat much. So, I just think I'm going with the Mavs.
Yeah, I think this is where the experience will lend itself a little bit more as well. This is a Thunder team playing for the first time. I think the size aspect is something. I really do. I've said it a lot over the last couple months, I'd say, about the Thunder. I think if Luka decides he wants to get to the basket, he will be able to. I think those lobs for Gafford, for PJ Washington, I think they'll be open at all times. And I just, they've got a long list of sort of guards you could maybe throw, like Lou Dort maybe, so some taller wings as well. They'll try a lot of different ways, and I'm going to have the respect for the Thunder enough to push it to 7, I think. But I just think that the Mavs, I think Luka is by far and away going into the playoffs anyway, the best player in the NBA. That's my opinion at the moment anyway. Could change all in a couple of moments. So, but that's what I would go for at this moment in time. But yeah, that'll be a fun series. I'll be tuning into those ones for sure if the time zones permit.
So Mavs in 7 for you, Lewis. What did you go Mavs in?
I didn't actually say. I'll go 7 as well. Why not? Give the Thunder as much of a chance as possible.
Mavs in 7. And who have they got in the conference semis? Have we got any way in which? I was about to say, is there any way in which the Suns can stop?
The Thunder play them the Thunder played them, not the Thunder, but the Suns played them hard in the playoffs last season. But I think the problem was you saw what the issues were with this matchup is that your individual players in your Devin Bookers and your Kevin Durant's, they can go nuclear and they still can't win some of the games. And it's because the Nuggets are just such a well-drilled team, and Jokic is such a well-drilled, such a good orchestrator, and Michael is such a good coach of it, that they have so many different looks they go to. They read the game so well that you just favour the team. And even with it, they've got the best player on the court. You just favour the team that has more in its arsenal to rely on than just the individual performances, even though I think there will be some big individual performances from Booker and KD like last time. I just have to favour the Nuggets.
I mean, even now that they've added Bradley Beal to their ranks?
Yeah, they got the X Factor.
Yeah.
No one rates. Well, it's not that no one rates him. I just don't think.
I think it's just more the same.
In this.
He gets like an empty 30 piece is kind of how I see Bradley Beal. Like an empty 30-point piece is what I see.
It sounds hard, but you are right.
Yeah,
I feel like they've got 6 players that all, even though they're obviously different varying levels and have different skills, they all kind of function the same, which is a lot of ISO scoring, 1v1 taking matchups. And it's just not, even though obviously when you have great players, and they have some great players, it's not as reliable as a system team with brilliant players too, like at Denver.
I agree. I do think Denver go through. I just, from where we're going at this, I think this year it's quite apparent that the Nuggets are the team from the West and the Celtics are the team for the East. There's something about the Nuggets that just isn't sitting right with me that it was the years gone by, where I'm like, they are just a machine. It is well-oiled and it works so well. I just think that this might be the year where they get a little bit found out, like a little, not like as in like they're bad. I just think teams might have cottoned on to what they do. And this could be the year. Ultimately, every year, we always go into it and there's always a team from the East and a team from the West, and it never ever plays out that way. One of them normally does, granted, but there's always a team that mess up. And I know it's historically, it's been Boston of late. I can't see it being Boston this year.
I mean, I'd be interested to see. I mean, you say this may be the year. I'd be interested to see what our predictions were last year when it comes to the Nuggets.
I'm sure they were bang on right. We don't make mistakes.
I think we were probably more confident in them now than we were last season, even though you're saying going into it, you think they were better last season. So I think that's a little bit of hindsight. But for me, the main issue with the Nuggets for me is, yes, teams will be have more attention towards them than they did last year in terms of maybe looking to try and outstop them, because everyone's looking at them like, you are the team that we've got to be. Even if they were last year, it's even more this year. For me, it's just that and I talk about all the different schemes they've got, the 2-man game of Murray and Jokic especially, I just don't think there's an answer for it. So even no matter how much schemes you throw at them, I just trust them to be able to work out in a 7-game series.
Yeah, it's easier to fall back on the system as opposed to individual moments of brilliance. And I think that's kind of that's what the Nuggets have kind of relied upon, and I don't think it's worked as well this season, and definitely not the last couple of games. But I mean, I've been banging on. I haven't liked the Suns all season. It'd be out of character for me to go, everything's peachy because they've won 7 of their last 10. You know what I mean? It doesn't sit right with me personally. I think it'll be close. I think 6 is what they had last year, and I think it'll be 6 again.
I think it'll play out relatively similar to last year.
I would agree, but more twisting and turning of Yusuf Nurkic as he just absolutely gets rinsed. But that'll be
their issue is if Nurkic gets injured and it's Drew Eubanks that comes in. That might even be a sweep, if I'm being completely
honest. It's a big fall off in that big man department for him.
It is indeed. Okay, Eastern Conference Finals. We have Celtics versus the Philadelphia 76ers. I can't quite believe I have just said that, but we're here and we're going to move on with it. So, I mean, the Celtics win. I'm not that mad to be like, Philly are going to win this game. The Celtics win. What do we have them winning by? Because I think at this point, we're saying that Philadelphia have played 11 games. And we're saying that Joel Embiid is still healthy. So I think he's got 2
Yeah.
in him and then he gets injured. So I've got the Celtics in 5 is where I'd go with this one. And Tobias Harris leaves Philly and everything's all good. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go 5 as well. I know we said we can't predict injuries, but we can at least predict how
good
wear and tear going into it.
Yeah. How good would it be if the Sixers did win and then it was just Joel Embiid v Nikola Jokic NBA?
Well, we'd get to see Embiid in Denver, which would be. We get to see Embiid in Denver for the first time.
I know. Do you know what it'd be? Do you know how rubbish it'd be? It'd be rubbish if he pulled. If this went like 7 games and Embiid. Let's just live in this land for a minute, right? That Embiid went 7 games with Boston, beat this Boston team. Boston are then in the mud because they've signed all these players on long-term deals and money, right? And everyone's got to get paid. Jason Tatum's got to get paid. All of these guys have got to get paid, right? Yeah, Jaylen Brown's already been supermaxed into next month. And then he gets the Nuggets, right? He gets the Nuggets in the finals, tears his meniscus, and then it's just a 4-0 sweep for Denver because they've got no one to stop him. Like that would be.
Yeah.
Adam Silver would need to phone up and get Jokic to go back and look at his horses because otherwise that's a rubbish NBA finals.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in that scenario, I wouldn't discard Boston being in the mud if they lost. It's like they're still very good.
No, they'd be. This is if we're being honest, this is Boston's window. Like they have to win it this year or next year.
Window,
like they have to.
They've got a few years. They've got a few years.
I don't think they've got a few years. Like, where's the money getting paid? Like Derek White's going to go because he's going to get paid. They're going to have to pay Jason Tatum. So unless they commit to paying Derek White or Porzingis, which I'm not sure they can even do. Like they're in, they are in very much win now mode.
I think the window's like 3 years, but I think they have enough of the mainstays where they can chop and change. They can chop and change a little bit. Like people would say before about, I know Derek White's probably a bit more important, but like Bruce Brown Jr. with the Nuggets, thinking that was going to be a huge loss, and we come now. No one's even talking about him in comparison.
It'd be a miss. It'll be a miss.
I'm saying I think it'll be a miss. But my point is, when you see the core team, the confidence is still there. Maybe it drops it from like a championship to a
I'll come out of fairy tale land. How many are Boston winning by?
So I think it'd be, if it was this scenario, I think it'd be in 5, as you say, to the Celtics, because the thing with the Celtics is just the amount of spacing they have, how deep they are with the different plays they can run, people that can score. Tatum will have his games, Jaylen Brown will have his games. I know they can be a bit streaky sometimes, but being backed by the unit they have now, they should be able to cover for that in any of these series against these Eastern Conference teams, I think. So I think you just have to pick the Celtics.
We also said about Embiid with a health concern. I think Porzingis is as big or bigger. Has this man ever made it through the first round of the playoffs? I don't actually know. I think he played in the Clippers and I think he got injured.
Yeah, so, I think even if he does get injured, Al Horford comes in for him, and we know what.
That's a massive downgrade.
No, it is a massive downgrade. But look, I know he's not the same player he was, but let's not forget what Al Horford has done to Embiid in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know, but Porzingis transforms that team like completely.
The problem is with Porzingis, it completely changes how they can.
Their offensive look, their offensive looks are completely different. But he can go. All right, the Boston go for 6. That's all I'm saying in that.
I mean, in the East Conference, they'll be fine. Yeah, don't get me wrong. But when we get into the big boys, it's different.
Mavs, Nugs in Western Conference Finals. This will be a very entertaining series. But again, it falls down to they don't have anyone to stop Jokic. And I think that no, they don't have anyone to stop Doncic. But in this sense, the 1-2 punch is going to prevail. This year, my MVP would be a certain man from Europe. I'll just sit on the fence right there. But I will. I'm going to go Denver. Shock of all shocks! I'm predicting a Denver v Boston final. I've said that for about 6 months. But
yeah, I think everyone has. And as you say, it's one of those ones where it's like, well, if everyone said it, then you think at least something will happen. And
I think this is also like, even if the Mavs get to the Western Conference Finals, it's a tremendous success for them. Like, it can't be seen anywhere else, because you think like this is Luka's first proper run at this in this team. the best they've been playing at. They get to a conference finals. No one's going to be like, "What a bottle! You lost to the best team in the NBA." Pretty much. Like it's going to be a year for them to then build on next summer, go in, make some tweaks that they've got. Kyrie hopefully comes back and is still Kyrie and doesn't start lighting sage around in Dallas. But yeah.
Also, the narratives, if it does fall like this, the narratives will be great because first we got Thunder Mavs. Whoever loses in that series, I can just see it now. Where it's like if Luka wins MVP and he gets bounced by the Thunder, it'll be like shocking MVP, SGA and then you get to the conference finals, and if the Mavs manage to pull through and Jokic wins MVP, it'll be like bloody Luka robbed. Look at this Jokic stat ladder, all that stuff, and the other way around. But for me, this series, it almost echoes some of the sentiment from the Suns one. Even though I think the Mavs are a better team, it's it's more. I think it's more reliant. Obviously, both teams, like with Luka and Jokic, if one of them falters, the team does fall apart. I think with Luka, it's a lot more about his individual performances and how he can basically shot create and make shots. Whereas with Jokic, it's a lot more running the offense and fall into different offensive schemes. Whereas for me, it's more like essentially like Luka ball, basically, where I do think I think it'll work all the way up to the conference finals, and I think it'll probably win some games against Denver. But I tend to favour the team performance more of the Nuggets over the Mavs, purely because I think it's less dependent on hero ball. Let's put it that way. Even though I know people like to use that all the time, but that would be my thing.
I actually kind of like the team around Luka and Kyrie, maybe a little bit more than the team around Jokic and Murray. I mean, Gordon is, I'd say, probably the best player out of, if it discounting the two best players on each team, I think Gordon with his defensive ability. But we saw him in the playoffs last year. He had, issues. They'd leave him open. That's kind of what they'll do. No Bruce Brown this year. I don't think Christian Braun has kind of kicked on as much as they think. But I still think if we're doing like title belts, lineal champions, if you will, if you're going for boxing, I think Jokic is the best. Like Luka is probably the best player on form, but I think Jokic is the best player in the NBA. And I think, the two-man game is inevitable. He is inevitable. So is Luka in a certain way. I just think Jokic has been here and he's done it before. So until he doesn't, I'm backing him.
And I'd say as well, even if you prefer the Mavs, some of the Mavs role players, I think the thing with the Nuggets is they're so well coached and all of them know exactly what they have to do and trust in each other and in Jokic to make the right reads when it comes. And Luka is obviously a fantastic passer of the ball as well. And I think he reads the game excellently too. But I think it's just a better, well-drilled unit, that Nuggets team.
Right. Well, who'd have thought we got here? Not me. It's a Denver Nuggets, Boston Celtics NBA Finals. It's a different NBA Finals font, isn't it? Have they changed that? It looks different.
Maybe. I hope they made the calls better.
Yeah, it looks a bit more elegant. I don't remember like the F having like this little gold flick on it, is what I'll say. But Denver Nuggets NBA Finals. Where are we going? Is this Boston's year or is it Denver again?
I'll let you two go first.
I really struggle with this actually, because when I think about how deep the teams are, it makes me favour the Celtics. But I think about the matchup, I don't think even with the personnel they've got, Celtics can do much about Jokic, but you can say that about all offensive players. But I think especially, I just don't think Porzingis ever does that against Jokic. Obviously, Tatum and Brown have their streaky games, and I think that'll always be the case. And against a team like Denver, you will get punished. And because Denver's such a good team, that can potentially be the difference between you winning a championship or not. Having said all that, I'm just going to go with the Celtics, just so it's a bit different, just so that, not a back-to-back. Maybe the Celtics finally get over the line. Tatum's obviously been knocking on the door for ages. He has to have an incredible finals. And why not say this is the year it happens? So Celtics, sure. Celtics in 7.
7-game NBA Finals where you're going.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I understand. I understand both perspectives. I think from a purely talent basis, all the players that Celtics have at their disposal is just a better team in general. You would say overall quality. Obviously, the Nuggets have the best player on the court. Part of me just doesn't trust Tatum, and part of me just doesn't trust Jaylen Brown. And you can say, oh, they can throw it to Derek White, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and I completely understand all that, and I do appreciate that. That's why I'm sort of struggling with it a bit in my mind. I just think there will be times where that Celtics offense freezes up, and I don't know if the coach will have the answers for it.
Louis always been a bit salty.
Yeah, Louis
always
really
he really doesn't.
He's
like
not really,
he loves a bit of Ime. He loves a bit of Ime Udoka.
I do love Ime. He's a great coach. Unfortunately, didn't make the play-in, but but yeah, I just there's part of me. I don't know. Maybe it's a case of you have to show me to trust me.
I do agree with you. I agree with you, Liv. I think it through my head. I think the logical conclusion I've come to is the Nuggets. I just would rather see the Celtics win. The one thing I will say, predicting a 7-game series, the one problem with that, if the Celtics are going to win a 7-game series, is with that amount of games, some of them are obviously going to be close. And I think the biggest difference, if I had to say between the two teams where I really favour one side, is if it gets close, I definitely favour Denver to win those close games, just because I think if people have documented it countless times with some of the shots, the decision making with the Celtics in that crunch time can be so poor at times. And I don't think you're going to get that with the Nuggets, which is why, as I said, if I really thought through it, I think my logical conclusion would be the Nuggets. But I just going to pick the Celtics.
Two pretty big home atmospheres as well we're dealing with. And I know the Celtics got their chain absolutely snatched by the Warriors in their own home court a couple of years ago. That'll still be with them. They have the experience at least, and I'm more than willing to be like, you had the experience before. Hopefully you've learned from it and you can come back. I'm just not entirely sure. Those guys, obviously, I just don't think have the fluidity. There's ways we know how you can get Jaylen Brown a little bit skatey, right? Put him on his weak hand, see what he can do with it. Jason Tatum doesn't assert himself sometimes, but he can have some really big games. But those are 3-point games. I've never seen him go at someone, for a whole game in a playoff series and just like aggressively make his way to the basket. And he's going to need to do that sometimes. I am leaning towards Denver. I've leaned towards Denver the whole year, but I understand going back to back is very, very difficult. So it really is a toss up. I'd go Denver in 7 as well. Oh, sorry. Opposite ends of the spectrum.
Side,
Denver in 7. Yeah.
If this goes 7, I'd love it. An NBA Finals going for a game 7. I just don't see it lasting 7. I just don't know why. I don't think we get an NBA
Warriors
Finals.
Raptors. Was it 6?
But
Warriors Raptors was 6. I think.
I just think in terms of where we go here, I think Denver are going to be Denver, and Boston will be Boston. And what I mean by that is, I know what I'm getting from Denver pretty much every game. Yes, there might be times where Jokic is a bit too passive-aggressive. Yeah, passive, not passive-aggressive. Yes, it's just like throwing out slide digs every now and then. Yes, there's times Jokic might be too passive. There's times when Michael Porter Jr. will shoot the ball too much. There's times where Aaron Gordon can't shoot the ball. There's times where 15 game from Michael Porter Jr. Everyone will be cold, and Michael Porter Jr. will be like, I'm still getting my 15 damn shots this game. I don't care about you. And he does his weird little. He's got such flat feet anyway. But with the Celtics, I don't know what I'm going to get every night, because sometimes it's like, it's Jaylen Brown's night, or it's Jason Tatum's night. There isn't that sort of well-oiledness. And I think when it comes, I completely agree. I think when it comes down to, there's 2 minutes left on the clock in the fourth quarter, it's a 2-point game. Who am I trusting when they call a timeout to set a play up? I know it ain't the team in green. That's all I'm saying on that side. So I think with that being said, I'm going to go Denver and I think Denver are going to do it in like 5 or 6. If I'm being completely honest.
That's really surprising to me. I did not think you'd say that.
No, I hark back to about 15 minutes ago. Phoenix
are the biggest threat to the championship.
I'm not as confident with I'm not as confident with Denver this year compared to last year. You just said Denver for the Celtics in
Look how
5.
good they are, though. I'm not confident in them, and they're still in my head. They're still going to do Boston by 5 or 6. It's just because I don't trust this Boston team. Every year it seems to be this is Boston. We're going to do, and I know that they look better this year. I've said it all that they should fly through anyone. But I think when it comes to it, and it's an NBA Finals game, and you got Jaylen Brown being put on his left hand, I'm not trusting that team. I'm really not. So yes, in that sense, I'm going to go. Denver know what they're doing, and I know that you can argue all this. I just think when it comes down to this moment, Jokic he's going to be the boss. He's going to be the Celtics daddy. That's pretty much it. This is where we're going to go.
Wow. Yeah, the only thing I'd say about the Celtics volatility, I'd say, is probably the best way to call it with them, and some of the streaky nights they can have, their players can have. I think the main difference this year compared to previous years is they've got more to fall back on, which is why I'd have more faith in them now than in previous. But as you say, against Denver, who are the champs and have, in my opinion, the best player in the world, that's still probably not enough.
When you say they've got more to fall back on, do you mean in terms of like Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard? Is that where you're going?
No,
just the way the team's set up. It's not like, I'm not saying it as in like, oh, if this person's not scoring, then this person, they can just chuck the ball to this person. I mean, just the way the offense is set up, they can get different looks, better setups for their players than they had before. They've got Porzingis, which gives Tatum and Brown more space. And if the decision making is better and the coaching's better, I know that you don't love Joe Mazzulla, but they've got more options and better situations to put their players in rather than forcing it. And I know they still, especially in the closing stages of games, force it a lot now. I just think when you see the weighing up of things and it averaging out more often than not, they should be able to get over the line.
Do you know what? And look, if someone goes, if the Celtics won this series, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, what a shock. Yeah. I'd be like, yeah, Boston have been unbelievable this year and they've put it together in the playoffs. I'm going off of what I know, what I've seen, and what, and fun enough, what I think is what's going to happen. That's how we do these things. I just see a blip coming for Boston when it matters. I think they'll be, I think throughout the entire East, they will be phenomenal. And I think it gets to the finals and they just don't know what to do against Jokic. It's going to be like a stumbler. Like that game 3, oh my God, is that going to be important in terms of how that runs down to it? Because I think they'd be in big trouble if they lose that game 3. So that's how it is. We'll go Nuggets in. You two both said 7, so I will agree.
To be fair, I said Celtics, so on the win.
But you said it'd be a close game anyway. So
we'll go 7. If I'm honest, I would say Nuggets in 5 is where I'd actually, if I was going to put my line in the sand, I would say Denver in 5. And it shouldn't be that because I've said all year how Boston are the best team in the NBA. But that's how we do things around here. How many total points will be scored in game 1? Probably like 230 is where I know on that one. But that's where we'll do it.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, what an NBA playoffs we've got to right there. What a run that's going to be. What a run that's going to be to watch Joel Embiid get to a conference finals. Oh yeah, that's how we're doing it around here. I think that's pretty much going to be it. We're going to do. We'll have a playoffs. We'll have a podcast discussing the NBA awards when they eventually come out. We'll chip in every now. We'll chop in every now and then when we have some more updates of how the playoffs are going. I'm sure everything that we've predicted here is going to be completely bang on correct. But if it isn't, we will talk about that in those podcasts. If you did enjoy watching this, listening to this, if you're watching it on YouTube or Spotify or listening to this wherever you are, please feel free to leave us a review. Make sure you're dropping a subscribe to us on the audio platform, or like I said on YouTube, leave us a like and drop us a sub here on the channel. Drop down below in the comments on this YouTube video as well. Who do you think is going to win the NBA Finals? Who do you think is going to get there? Who's your dark horse for the playoffs? Who do you think is going to be the biggest upset? We'd love to know down below. And I think, guys, if there's anything else, I think that wraps us up. You got anything else to say?
Nothing from me.
No, I think that's about it.
No, we're all good. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next podcast. Peace.